Good morning and welcome to Kopi Talk. This is Kenny Ngor, your host, and today I have a very lovely lady in the studio with me, and she's such a busy woman, but a woman who is out and about empowering people. Julianne Lim is with us here on Kopi Talk. Good morning, Julianne.
Hi, good morning, Kenny. I'm really excited to be here.
So am I, and thank you for taking time away from your busy schedule, just to help us get this interview up and coming. The reason we are interviewing Julianne is because she's also part of a panel of people who are taking part in the Young Stewards Conference. Julianne, before we get to the segment on the Young Stewards Conference, maybe share with us a bit about yourself, like whether you're a cradle Catholic or a convert, and what is that one value that convinced you to this Catholic faith?
Yes, I am actually baptized when I was an infant. And I think one of the Catholic values that really mean the most to me would be love. And great love. Of course, my role models were and are currently now still my parents, who have showed me what great love is.
Very nice. And, for some of us growing up, right, we get caught up into the different situations, doing well in your studies, make sure you have a career path, set as young as probably when you're almost hitting your PSLE. But what about you? Did your parents actually impose that kind of an expectation on you, or were you more free to grow up to be the loving person that you are today?
I think definitely the freedom and empowerment was given to me. Hence, I made many mistakes along the way and also defined what success is to me. So one of the main things that I think that success was material success.
When you talk about material success, are you talking about in terms of the usual 5 C's like career, car, country club, obviously family, which is not a C. I can't remember what the last C is, but were you striving for these, or were they more towards our Catholic kind of C's?
I think the material success that I defined are wealth, how much wealth we have, financial assets, also in terms of power. That would be in, for example, the corporate designations, corporate power, as well as also the other would be recognition and awards. So I think with regards to recognition and awards, these would be definitely accolades to keep, awards to die for in the sense of the revenue generated for the bank, as well as the different certifications or awards generated for the year.
While striving for these things, did it distract you from the Catholic expectations of you?
The distractions with regards to obtaining the material success have definitely been very shiny and very attractive. They have always been sitting in the center of my life. And I would also be drawn to the media of how living a successful life is, what are the, things to achieve and how to get into that realm of success. With such constant subscription of ideals, that I think it definitely encompasses my whole perception of what a good life is.
I read your little resume on your Facebook while, trying to find out who you are. And I realized that you're actually a very successful banker, right? You went into private banking, you obviously made it. And then you're currently now the director and CEO at Strong, Bold, Grateful. And I'm guessing that it's, an entity packed with lots of goodness, empowerment, and inspiration. Is this something that God inspired you to do? And is this an entity that, allows you to be, in a way, bigger, but more in the Catholic perspective?
So there were many things that happened along the way. There was the aspiration of being a private banker and then subsequently reaching that destination. And I think God meets us at where we are. It's funny how when I had arrived, so to speak, it had seemed a lot more empty than I had anticipated and worked for all my life since I was 16 as a teenager. Now, when I look back and see God's hand in my life, I can see how He gently moves me and has very gently moved me away from what I had envisioned to be successful into something that is even more wholesome. That success can actually be shared with even more people. But of course, that story comes with trials and tribulations. But even through all of that, I actually enjoy the company of the Holy Spirit, and how seeing things through a different lens and a different perspective with God now in the center of my life, that success can actually be in other ways beyond my imagination. And that is how Strong, Bold and Grateful had been born. Strong, Bold, Grateful is actually a company that strives to bring hope to others for people who are going through cancer or people who have had cancer. And eventually to also reach out to people who are overcoming adversity and to bring stories of hope, to bring stories of perseverance, and most importantly is God's love through programs, talks, as well as stories.
Interesting. And we'll be finding out more from Julianne about Strong, Bold and Grateful. But let's go for a message on Catholic SG Radio, and we'll be right back with Julianne Lim. So stay with us.
Giving Him all glory and praise in the morning, the Glory and Praise Show, GPS, on Catholic SG Radio.
Welcome back to Kopi Talk. This is Kenny Ngor and my guest, Julianne Lim, who is going to be one of the panel members for the Young Stewards Conference. We're finding out more about her faith story thus far and what she has gone through. Julianne, you mentioned just now before we went for a trailer that you started this Strong, Bold, Grateful entity to empower people who had cancer or perhaps involved in some way. I'm assuming that you yourself must have some involvement. So maybe share with us, if you may, what exactly happened to you.
So Kenny, I was talking about how success is in my life and how I define success. And I think the different ways and the common measures that I used to have would be wealth, power, as well as recognition, and many other things, like, for example, how successfully routine my day is, right? And also how I would define that I have arrived with regards to my corporate title, or even, for example, ascending the corporate ladder. And God has a very funny way of making me realize that I have arrived. And that feeling of having arrived had come to me as a surprise, that that destination was something that I had always wanted. It was so shiny for a long time. And He showed me that upon arriving, that there are other shinier things. And these shinier things is a very different kind of light. It's a light that shows the people around me that these are actually what matters most to me. You know, besides the relationships, are also His love for me. And how I realized this, Kenny, is actually because I was always too busy living this successful life, right? And never had the time to stop, to pause, and to think, and to actually really be very grateful. Yes, of course, I'm very grateful every day. In fact, I do, have a journal of gratefulness, and I journal to God and to Jesus and the Holy Spirit. I do communicate quite a lot. But I think that realization of how He is in my life can only be experienced and cannot be articulated. What I mean by that is that little did I expect that at a very young age of 38, when I'm living the peak of my life, excelling in my career, and it's what most people would go through. We peak at in our late 30s, in our 40s, and, we make a decision if we want to ascend the corporate ladder and stuff like that. And I thought that that would be for me as well, to continue serving my colleagues in the organization and to be that Christian leader at work. But God has other plans for me, and He showed me how relationships are even more shinier in my life, and how His love for me is even better than what the world can offer. And He showed me through my times where I was diagnosed at the age of 38 with breast cancer. At the young age of 38, I did not expect to be stricken with a disease like cancer, and to actually have to really stop and pause. And I was ejected out of my life into the chemotherapy chair. And I think a lot of things had to slow down, or could not continue with what I was doing before. And because of this slowdown, that I have the time to really It's as if the scales on my eyes were peeled off and they had dropped off as all my hair and my skin started to flake, and all the effects of the chemotherapy drugs. As good as it is, it was also stripping me away of all the beauty externally as well as what I used to hold on. So the vision of all that beautiful image in my life that I had envisioned had started to crumble away. And he showed me that even through it all, that it is okay.
Wow, Julianne, I wouldn't have expected that. I mean, here you are sitting next to me and you're looking healthy, you're looking hip. I wouldn't have imagined the nightmare that you went through. I'm so sorry. I hope you're better now. I hope that at least you're officially in remission. But nonetheless, what is the one lesson other than slowing down that probably God revealed to you through this whole horrific journey that you just went through?
No, to all of what possibly a younger adult cannot imagine is to go through disease in one's 30s or even 20s, right, or 40s, is that I think the loss of identity was the biggest one for me. Who am I without my career? Who am I without my responsibilities in the society? Who am I if I'm not contributing at this age? Who am I without health? And I think who am I really was the question that I kept asking myself, with everything being stripped away, with no looks, no self-image, no routine that I used to be used to. For example, 5 a.m. awake, exercise, get to work, finish up, get back, have a social life, sleep by a certain time, and all that. Without all that, who am I is the biggest one for me.
I have at least 4 friends who are going through advanced cancer at the moment. And I know how scary it is. I know how isolating it can be. Some people, when we, as friends, we want to reach out and say, I'm here for you and everything. But I can only imagine that, it's only a fraction of the love that it can be received and given back. For you, what was your turning point when you finally allowed people to journey with you? I'm sure people must have come into your life, communities must have developed for you to actually arrive at this location of strong, bold, and grateful. Can you share with us perhaps the turning point for you?
Yes, Kenny, you're right. In Singapore, we actually do have many more people who are stricken with diseases, for example, like cancer. And this journey can be very scary for not only the person who is diagnosed, but also the caregivers and friends and family. I think one thing that really, really moved my heart and moved the mountains in my heart, so to speak, is really the love from not only just one person, not just 10 people, not just 100 people, but the many people that come along my way in a day. And what do I mean by that? Okay, so Kenny, for example, sometimes we think to ourselves that we as a single person can't really do that much. I mean, what can I do, right? Here is my friend or my family who is in an adversity. And I wish I could do more. I would say, Kenny, take that wish and that desire and turn it into a message. And we will be surprised how that message can actually reach a person's depths of their heart in a time that we may or may not know what the person is actually going through. So let me give you an example. There was one particular night where, it was one of those days where I could not really control chemically my brain. There would be an imbalance of chemicals. So I was clinically depressed. And I was also situationally depressed because of the self-image, the perception of what my life had become. And so in these times, in this particular night, I remember that I had received a few messages from a few people that came at different times of the night. Of course, my friends and my family did not know that how I was feeling or how terribly at the bottom I was. But the messages just came, and I allowed myself to not respond and to have that grace to just receive the person's love, the person's thoughtfulness, that attention to, hey, I'm missing you, I thought of you. And there was a delivery, but this delivery it did not come knocking on my door. This delivery was actually a string of messages that was in the form of an electronic greeting card. And Kenny, this greeting card is not just any other normal greeting card. This greeting card actually had 200 messages that my boss had rallied from all my colleagues in the entire organization, and had put together photos and thoughtful messages and had sent it my way and got it delivered just right at the time when I was on my pillow, could not control my tears, and received this delivery. The acts of service that a person does sometimes can really go a long way. In this case was my very extraordinary caring leader who had rallied different people over the entire month, who had put together their thought, their time, their little bit of themselves into this and delivered it to me at the time where I most needed. So the one thing that we think that we possibly did not really make a difference to a person can really be something. So the next time where I think that I don't have the time or I don't have anything to offer, I will remember my own experience that when I just give a little few seconds, a little time, and just share my talent of writing my care and concern for that person, can actually make a lot of difference. And if many of us do that, in my case, there was a limit to that. It's either 200 or 500. So my boss thought, I think 500 is a bit difficult. So let's go with 200, right? So 200 people did that. And I understood from my boss later that many other people wanted to contribute, but there was a limit. So yes, we can actually make a huge difference to someone.
Wow, you just inspired me. Really, really. And I'll share with you off the air what inspired me. Let's get a different part now, which is the Young Stewards Conference. And I'm sure, your story will definitely impact people. But the essence of time, the way just described your routine, time from 5 a.m. all the way till bedtime, right, is so packed with different things, all towards striving for success. And yet this Young Stewards Conference is exactly that, to talk about time and talk about talent. For your portion, right, if you may, are you able to give us a sneak peek of what you would like to say to these participants who are actually taking part in this Young Stewards Conference that's taking place in a couple of days from now?
At the Young Stewards Conference, I would like to share a little bit more about not only measures of success, but also how that FOMO mindset, right, the fear of missing out mindset, had really affected me. And the loss of identity that comes with it, the transformation can only happen when God really has a powerful hand in my life. And the crawling out was so tough and so dark that I think it would only be possible because I have faith and that I know His promises and that I'm standing on it. Without that, I think I would be devastated and possibly can't even recognize myself. But I think more importantly, I would like to share a little bit more about the new measures of success and the new mission that had unfolded and revealed itself because of having the desire to share the talents, with being open, being a little bit more receptive, being a little bit more in discovery, a little bit more of being in awe of what possibly can be happening beyond my understanding, and to just be open to actually see. So I'd like to share a little bit more of that. But also I'd like to leave the question of this to everyone, which I have been asking myself. When is it ever enough? I'd like to begin this conversation and continue to have this conversation with more and more people.
A question, a cliffhanger. I hope that just by that, people will stay and find out for themselves. Thank you for your time on Kopi Talk with me, Julianne. And I pray that in the next few days when, you get on stage and, inspire so many participants that are going to be part of this Young Stewards Conference, that they'll be amazed by this wonderful person that you are, the transformation that you went through, but most of all, to be inspired as well to give of their time and their talent towards making God's mission possible. So again, on behalf of Catholic SG Radio and our listeners, may God continue to bless you and keep you healthy, keep you safe, and inspire you, in directions that perhaps I'm sure is going to be loving and pleasant surprises along for you. So God bless you, my friend.
Thank you, Kenny. It's really a pleasure and an honor to be with you and on your show. I'm a huge fan, by the way.
Thank you so much. So kind. This has been Kenny Ngo and my guest, Julianne Lim, here on Kopi Talk, right here on Catholic SG Radio, touching hearts and lightening minds.
This is Kopi Talk on Catholic SG Radio.